Hi, I'm Brian Lord, and welcome to Free Virtual Fridays. This is a great way for you to learn about speakers and how you can use virtual events to help your teams. Today, our guest is the Scott Hamilton. The Scott Hamilton, who is very entertaining. It's hard to even do like the serious stuff, like a real intro. So if you don't know who Scott is, that's tough. But no, Scott's amazing as a skater, won 70 competitions or more, New York Times best-selling author, Father of the Year candidate, I'm sure somewhere, and just one of the more entertaining, engaging people out there, cancer survivor, just a host of accolades for an amazing person. So Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, this is fun. We haven't seen each other in a while, and this is a great way to reconnect and to say hi to everybody out there. So it's I'm really, really happy to be here.
Yeah. So our topic today, I'm sure we're going to get a whole lot of stuff today, but our topic to start off with is how to fight back when you want to give up, when you feel like the world is just too difficult. And this is what you've spoken on for a long time, and 2021 has been, a year for a lot of people that they've had to do that a whole lot. So Scott, maybe take us back to your story, because not everybody knows. Like, everybody knows who you are, but they don't know maybe your background.
Well, yeah, I was adopted at 6 weeks of age, which is always kind of a unique thing. It's identity-wise, right? Was I abandoned or was I chosen? It's always that tug of war. But my parents were absolutely phenomenal. I can't imagine any other mom and dad, and so I grew up in this really great household where if you're from, academia, you expect your child to be smart if it's a birth child. If you're from athletics, you expect your child to get into sports because, that's biologic, right? But when you're an adopted child, it's kind of like, okay, let's just see what happens. let's just see what works out. And so, I got sick as a young child. I was in and out of hospitals for 4 years. That was a big adventure. Lots of really interesting stories and epiphanies there. And then to give my parents a morning off, I got into skating. And then skating gave me kind of an identity. And for the first time in my life, a little taste of self-esteem, because I could skate as well kids. And then I could skate as well as the best athletes in my grade. And so I was like, that's my superpower. And so it was really just sort of bumping into walls until you figure it out. And I'm in and out of school, and I'm in hockey, I'm in figure skating, the peer pressure, all that stuff. And then I lost a lot, I failed a lot, and then I kind of had to figure it out. And then the end of my amateur career, I found a way to make the Olympics in 1980, which was great. And then went 4 years undefeated through 1984, which was really great. Yeah. and then I had to start a professional career in a female-dominated industry, and I figured that out. Lost my first job because I wasn't a woman. Built another business called Stars on Ice, and then I got cancer in the middle of that, which was really outrageous because I lost my mother to cancer, actually almost 20 years to the month before. And so it's just, having to kind of always figure out a way to rise up to the challenge, rise up to the obstacle, figure out a way to deal with each thing as they come. And, after cancer, I got married, had a child, and then I had my first brain tumor. And then I had my second brain tumor, and then I had my third brain tumor. And each one of them created their own list of challenges. So, what I try to, say a lot, is just I try to encourage people when I meet them. It's like, we can overcome anything. It's just, you take what's in front of you, you figure out, exactly what your assets and liabilities are, and you just sort of deal within those parameters. The most overused word in 2020 was a figure skating term. And nobody even really knows it. Like, when you stick your toe in the ice and then you glide around, it's called a pivot. And everybody's like trying to find ways of pivoting. And it's true, you've got to, whatever that, if you run into a wall, you got to figure out a way under it, over it, around it. And it's just one of those things that in my particular experience, I've just had to deal with on a pretty consistent basis.
What is the secret to a good pivot?
A good pivot is to really make sure that one toe is actually in the ice and that you're able to generate enough speed to get around it.
How did you? How long did it?
So that's
take
a
you
good
to
metaphor.
Yeah.
Well, it's really good if you ever watch pair skating. You see the death spiral where the woman is holding onto her partner and she's leaned all the way back. You'll see his feet, and he's in a pivot position. And even for me, when I did triple toe loops, it's a pivot takeoff, and it's all these different pivot is all I heard. And what was really wild about that is it's like, wow, this is really. It's true to the figure skating move where you've got to anchor yourself somewhere and then move. You gotta move right now. So it's been really wild to kind of see how 2020, just how we lived through it. And just had to deal with a lot of challenges and a lot of setbacks and a lot of fear. I think of the most highly sought after and consumed product of 2020 was fear. And so, I found this identity through all of this, through all these, failures and knockdowns and illnesses, that encouragement is such an important thing to inject into people's lives.
How did it change? So when you were a little kid, I mean, you talked about before that skating saved your life. Like, you weren't sure if you were going to be around much longer, and you got into skating, and that gave you so much there. And that was kind of your way with dealing with things. How did your method of dealing with things change from maybe your first obstacle to your most recent obstacle?
Well, it's just understanding that, whatever happens. It's like, okay, so I had to estimate how many times have I fallen down on the ice since my first steps on the ice through my amateur and my professional career, because I skated for a really long time.
Yeah.
36 years, all right? So I figured in that on the low end, I've fallen 41,600 times, right? So when you fall down 41,600 times, you kind of have to get up 41,600 times. And failure takes on a different identity. Failure is more about information, more than just the ickiness of failure, right? It's like we all have our failures, and they're sticky, right? But once I got to the point where I realized that failure is just honestly just nothing more than information. That didn't work, let's try it this way. That didn't work, let's try it this way. That door just slammed in my face. All right, window, anyone? Okay, where do we go? So you're in this constant mode of, like, at least, I think we all are, but I'm in this constant mode of having to kind of figure out how to deal with my current situation. So when 2020 came, I said, I'm going to do what I always did when I had cancer or one of my brain tumors. I'm going to be the best patient there is out there. I'm going to listen to all the information. I'm going to, and then when you sit and listen to it for a while, it all starts kind of colliding into each other, and then it becomes this sort of chaotic situation. I go, no, let me go back to my roots. Here's my problem. How am I going to solve it? And when you get used to that idea that failure is equal to information only. Now think about this. If a baseball player only fails 2 times out of 3, he's in the Hall of Fame, right? So there's that. And I think, I fell 5 times in my first nationals. Well, I got up 5 times in my first nationals. And I came in dead last in front of 17,500 people. Humiliating. How do you rise above that? And it's just all of those things that you learn over time. It's like, I'm on tour, I'm 50 cities into a 60-city tour, and I can't stand up straight anymore. I have cancer. Oh, okay, I just thought I had an ulcer. Now what? It's like, you do the best you can. And you do it with all the information that you have, and you do it in the best way you know how. And over time, I think what happens is you get into a situation where you just sort of become more resilient. You become more kind of substantial. It's like we've just lived through a global pandemic, and they're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like, okay, it's there. We just got to keep our heads down and just keep going until we get through it. And so in my little life adventure, it's been really fun to encourage people. It's like, month 2 of the lockdowns, what am I going to do? There's nobody's, there's no work, there's no anything else. So we created an encouragement platform called Live Your Days. Because I've been reminded that our bodies, right, are incredibly vulnerable, susceptible, fragile to a million different things. also incredibly resilient. Temporary. But we're temporary. So what are we going to do with our days? And it's been this real fun thing to ignite this kind of like this new passion for embracing whatever life hands me. And in that time, I learned how to grill. I learned how to, just sit around the table and have dinner every night instead of trying to figure out a way to get home from the airport in time from dinner. And it's been glorious. I've connected with my kids in ways that I never could have without it. And it's just trying to find a way to shore us up physically so that if we are exposed, we're going to be able to, just get through it. So it's all about just like, keep going, get through it. And it's been a really fun adventure.
So do you think that spirit that you have, is that something that you were born with? Is it something you learned from other people? Where did it come from?
I think it comes from, what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, it just happened. All right. I'm still here. It's like, okay, I guess that wasn't a game over situation, right? So it's that whole idea of like, I've done everything. I've lost jobs. I've failed at relationships. I've failed at competitions. I've failed figure tests. And what I've learned throughout, it's like what I tell my kids, and they always just sort of eye roll and just sort of like, give me a break, Dad. It's like, what's the greatest strength, right? And they look at me and they go, okay, all right, I'll say it. All right, lack of weakness. I go, that's it. Greatest strength, lack of weakness. Figure out where you're weak and get strong. Like they hate math. Work it out. Math is absolute. There's only one answer.
Yeah.
Okay? Come on, you can do this. You can do this. So it's all those things that, I was horrible at the figure eights, and I hated them. And what I found is the more I hated them, the more they hated me back. Yeah. And so once I decided to fall in love with compulsory figures, it was like, wow, they like me, right? And it's the only reason. It was, well, not the only reason. The main reason that I won the Olympics in 1984 was because I won the figures. And I beat the best guy ever in figures in the world. And it was just one of those things that if you don't ask yourself to do something, you'll never get an answer.
Wow. And so how do you teach those to your kids? So you're a great family man. You've got 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
Do you specifically set out to teach them that, and have they reflected what you've taught them?
They kind of, dads can't really say much to their kids without it being like, ugh. It's like, here he goes again. But it's just pouring into them and just trying to, what I found was as we get older, we start to collect, life habits, whatever, kind of things that we do. And when my first son was born and I'm holding him in my arm, here's his head and here's his feet, I'm looking into flesh of my own flesh for the very first time. And I'm looking into my eyes. He had my eyes. And I was like, I want to be everything this child would want me to be. So all those things that weren't healthy, all those things that, my language, words I used, the way, I get up in the morning, whatever I needed to do to be that example for him, that was a constant thought. And then, we have the first child, and then, how many months, I guess it was 14 months later, I'm diagnosed with a pituitary brain tumor, and we wanted another child. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, what do I have to do to have another child? Well, you have to self-inject 6 times a week until it works. And it never worked. For 2 years, I self-injected 6 days a week. I would inject just to try to create some level of fertility. And we finally just decided that, all right, this isn't working. It's really expensive, and it's starting to get to the point where I dread it. Yeah. So if we're going to have another child, well, God will give us another child. That's just where we're going to go. And be careful what you ask for, right? So, I went to a well visit at the Cleveland Clinic, and just to track my brain tumor, and they left me waiting for a while. I'm reading Dave Ramsey's book about emergency funds, and I'm getting all these signals, right? And it's like, oh no, I'm going to get bad news today, or I'm going to get something earth-shattering is going to happen today. And the doctor came in, he goes, oh, it's fine. It was a different looking MRI because you're on a new machine, and you're fine, go home. So I turn on my phone. At that time, it was a flip phone. And the pics, why do they put cameras on flip phones? I never understood that.
Who knows?
Right? So I opened the thing, and there's a pics message, and I couldn't really make it out. And basically, it was a positive pregnancy test. And so
wow.
My second son was born with flaming red hair. Okay. And then, 2 years after that, the Haiti earthquake happens, and that sets us up for adopting 2 more children. So we went from one, doubting whether we'd have another, to having 4.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's game on. We're a multiracial family and dealing with all the challenges that come with our world, and it's just giving our children every opportunity to succeed.
And so many different things going on in this world. This week is also, we had World Cancer Day, and you are a New York Times best-selling author for, sort of more traditional books, but also you have this amazing book that just came out last year, Frizzy Finds a Hat.
Yeah, we released it last year on World Cancer Day, and it's basically this. It's inspired by the story of my mom coming home and telling us that she had cancer. And she did it in a really super upbeat, very, hey everybody, just came back from the doctor, I've got cancer. And it was almost like she was excited about it. It's like, wait a minute, I thought cancer was a bad thing. And she just didn't want us to fear, didn't want us to be consumed in, obviously what she was going through, and really wanted to create an environment where it could be as positive and as joyful as possible. So Frizzy Find a Hat is basically, my mom came home and just said, okay, I'm gonna have cancer, I'm gonna have some medicines, I'm gonna do these things. And Fritzy, who's a skater, takes it on to, I've gotta help my mom solve a big problem, and that's the hat she's gonna wear to treatments on Tuesdays. And so Fritzy goes out, Brad Paisley, country music superstar, did a lot of the illustrations in the book, and it was really
It's
fun
nice
to
he has
work with
something to
him.
fall back on now. The
Yeah,
whole music
really,
thing
yeah.
doesn't work out. He can be an illustrator for kids' books.
Yeah, really. And nobody's, if you spend any time with Brad, and obviously people do, in their cars and, in their headsets and things, but, he's an artist, in every sense of the word. He's always creating, always, whether it be, he's written a book or he's doing paintings, and they're all over his house, and his kids are very involved, and Kim does a lot of art as well with her writing and everything. And it's just a very artistic household. So when I asked him, I go, would you help me with this children's book? He said, absolutely. And then he called me, and whenever I get these calls, and he goes, can I ask you a question? It's like, uh-oh. And I go, anything. And he goes, can my sons, can they do a hat in the book? And so I go, absolutely. So it's kind of a family business. He brought boys in, they all got to work on the book. And it's about, it's about cancer, and it's about a gentle way of talking to your children about cancer, because the statistics are alarming. 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer in this country. It's the #1 cause of death. How do you bring this up to your children to allow them to kind of operate positively in that? And so we really felt like Frizzy Finds a Hat was a great way to talk about it, but also to instill those values in your children that they can help their parents solve problems. To me, that's the real get. It's like, mom she's facing something. How can I help her? And, Fritzy finds a way to give her the perfect hat. But you have to, buy the book in order to get the ending.
I know you do. I looked it up online. I'm like, I need to see the ending, because you only get so many hats out of the different
And you
things.
couldn't sleep, right?
I know. I'm like, what's happening here? There is a cowboy hat in there. So I'm like, oh, Brad Paisley. He had to make sure there's a cowboy hat. Not to spoil too much of it. So, this is obviously something you've done, and part of it goes to your CARES Fund, your Scott Hamilton CARES. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what that does?
Yeah, so CARES came out of my cancer diagnosis. When I lost my mother in 1977, it happened it feels like yesterday that I lost her, but 1977, it was a brutal day, and I decided that I had to do whatever I could to participate in the cancer community to help. If I could figure out a way to treat my mom's cancer, I'll know I was born, basically. So I became a fundraiser, and then 20 years after I lost her, I'm diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And it was there that I learned what chemotherapy was, what facing a major surgery is all about, what all the uncertainties and the lack of information and the lack of support. And so out of my survivorship, I created CARES. And CARES stands for the Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, and Survivorship. And it's all about, in its initial launch, it's about filling gaps in the cancer community. When I looked up testicular cancer on the internet, I got medical journal papers with 12-syllable words, sometimes 6 to a sentence. I'm too dumb to be sick, really? Come on, that's not fair. That's not fair. And so we created chemocare.com, which is a website that explains everything about the chemotherapy experience on 8th grade English and Spanish. Then we created the Fourth Angel Mentoring Program, which pairs newly diagnosed patients with survivors of the same treatment and disease, type. And then from there, it's all about research. And now, in the most, for the last 6 years, we've been a dedicated foundation, and all we care about is advancing the kind of cancer treatment options that treat the cancer and spare the patient harm. And so scottcares.org for anybody that wants to throw a mountain of money at us, which we desperately need, because the science is up here. It used to be like when Nixon declared war on cancer, the money would push the science. The money would push the understanding of the disease. Well, now they map the genome. They've got a better understanding of how the human body works. Now the science is up here and the money's down here. So we need to kind of start closing that gap. And we've been really working hard to do that. So in a year where we raise most of our money through events, we've had to pivot. And now we're just really creating these really cool, unique partnerships, and we're working with companies that are really health-based, and it's been really fun to kind of learn and grow our capacity to serve cancer patients in different ways.
So we do have some questions that are coming in here. So one we've got from Julie and from John. What accomplishments are you most proud of?
Oh, man. I guess, the Olympics is really super logical. I mean, the fact that I'm like 5'3", weigh nothing, and I'm an Olympic gold medalist makes no sense at all. Especially growing up where I did with a family of academics. I do think what I'm most proud of is my family, my children, and just the promise of how they'll interact with the world and try to make it a better place. But I think, my family is what I'm most proud of.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, that's one of the questions we got in were, if you took away this and this and this and this and this, what are you most proud of? Like, that's a little too specific.
Yeah,
looking for one answer.
There's a lot of my body parts missing, so that's okay too.
So a question from let's see here. What keeps you centered? Some days it feels so overwhelming. Do you have a go-to strategy, resource, or activity that helps?
Are we allowed to go there? Yeah. No, it's like I always thought life was so chaotic, and I always thought that the things happening to me were I just bad luck, or I'm cursed, or anything else. And then, I skated with Janet Lynn in the 70s, and she was faith-based, like nobody's business. She was a true, dedicated Christian, and I didn't understand. I tried, and I couldn't figure it out. So I go, well, hopefully I will figure that out. So when I met my wife after cancer, she just said, where are you in your relationship with Jesus? And I said what any smart guy would say. I'd say, where do you want me to be? But it was there that I was at a place where I could really start to understand. And as I dove into my faith, which I did, I dive into everything, but as I dove into my faith, man, all those questions were answered. It wasn't a curse. I was being moved. I was being adjusted. I was being fortified. In Romans it says, that suffering produces endurance, character, and character, hope. And it's like, I read that and it's like, yeah, I get it now. Yeah. And when I hear people say that cancer is the worst thing that ever happened to me, I agree with them. And when I hear people say cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me, I agree with them. Because without cancer, I wouldn't have the family I have right now. I wouldn't have the marriage I have right now. I probably wouldn't live in Nashville. I mean, it's these forks in the road that really take you where you need to go. And I've been really blessed that to navigate those forks and to have all of it make sense through my dedication to my faith. And just reading the Bible and just understanding the wisdom that's in it has really been incredibly fortifying, especially in uncertain times.
So we've got time for one or two more questions. So one is from Carrie. Where can you order the book?
The order of the book, anywhere. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. It's available where all books are sold. Best thing, obviously, is if a book's been on the market for a while, like Frizzy's been out a year, it's better to buy it online. There's usually always copies online.
Yeah. And next question from Julie Altzer. My mom, Nancy Gilbert, is a huge fan of Scott and figure skating. Could you please say hello to her?
Hi, Nancy Gilbert.
I'm reading these live as we're reading them here.
Hi, Nancy Gilbert. It's fun that, just through different, like Cameo. Cameo has been so much fun, where, people, they'll send you a request to do a video shout out. And I've really gotten into that. And it's been a really fun way to interact with people, like on birthdays, special occasions, encouragements, things like that. And we have all these new partnerships through CARES, like, with EncourageX and all these other platforms that are really, and Live Your Days, obviously, is just meant to be a destination of encouragement. So it's been really fun. So hi, Nancy. Hope you're having a great day.
Well, I think that is a great way to finish. Oh, we got one more, and then I think we're finishing up here because I think we're out of time. How old are your children, and do any of them figure skate?
Okay, 19, 17, 17, and 13. The first three never had an interest in skating, but they can, because we obviously do, especially on family vacations. My youngest one played hockey for a few years, and now he's decided that he really would rather be like all in on the school experience.
Yeah.
So he's playing basketball right now. Believe it or not, a 5'3" dad as a basketball player. And all my kids are really involved in. My oldest son, Jean-Paul, is a soccer player. Eveline played soccer at CPA this year. Aiden is a soccer player that's now getting into martial arts, and he wants to go into the armed forces and be a soldier. And Max, is soccer, basketball. He wants to play football at Brentwood Academy. Good luck with that. And and just he loves all sports, and he loves his buddies. So as long as our kids are being socialized and they're crushing it in school, they don't have to crush, but do the best they can in school.
Yeah.
And it's all you can ask. Yeah. So I've been blessed. They're all healthy. My wife, who's a warrior, champion, awesome woman, is just, she's kind of the rock that keeps everything on point and just leads with love, which is amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And how are we doing on time, by the way? Are we pretty close in?
11:30.
Oh, 11:30. All right. Last question. All right. This is from Michael. How do you feel the current state of figure skating is at, and how is the U.S. talent for the upcoming Olympics?
Nathan Chen. How do you beat Nathan Chen when he's on his game? You can't, right? So I would, unless he has some sort of injury or meltdown or something weird happens, I would almost put him in as a lock to win the Olympic gold medal in Beijing in year after next. U.S. team, I think they're pretty strong. We're still needing some help in pairs. Dance-wise, we're in great shape. Ladies, we've got some strong ladies coming up. But what's interesting is, back in I'd probably say the late 90s, the whole business model of figure skating changed, and they kept everyone in the competitive side. So entities like Stars and Ice started to diminish. The business of skating, the industry changed. And so there's not as many opportunities for skaters now as there was before. So I feel badly about that. I do think that, I always like to think the pendulum swings both ways. So it'll be really interesting to see, what Team USA does at the next Olympics to inject new interest in the sport and to see if people would start coming out to live events, if we can ever have live events again. But I don't know, it's changed a lot. It's really more about competitive skating than the full experience of becoming an entertainer. For my first steps on the ice to Olympic gold was 16 years, and then I toured for 20.
Wow.
So that toured for 20 thing doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So what I feel sad about is that a lot of skaters will reach the peak of their athletic ability, and then there's really no place for them to go from there, and so they end up diminishing, So I'm hoping, and we'll see. Hopefully we'll be able to inject new interest in skating and really build a new fan base that would make shows like Stars on Ice more viable and economically more stable.
Great. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, Brian. It was fun to be
here.
It was a blast. I love doing this.
Well, you're a lot of fun. This makes it so much.
Oh,
it's
man.
Very easy.
And the one thing I miss most about traveling is I fly Southwest almost exclusively, and I meet a lot of people. And so it's like that's a big void in my life. So I'm hoping that we pivoted this way. Let's pivot back that way to having more opportunities to assemble and to live as we're supposed to live in community.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing. If you do happen to run into Scott at Costco, Gasline, or
Anytime.
somewhere else,
Yeah.
Everybody has a story. Oh yeah, I ran into Scott and we were hunting for the same toy at Target or something
Yes.
like that. You're actually somebody who's pretty well known that it's okay to say hi to.
Oh man, I was in a grocery store the other day, and I almost crashed into this lady. And we ended up, after I almost crashed into her, I ran into her again, and we ended up sitting there for almost half an hour talking.
Oh wow!
So don't if you got time. Let's do this.
You're warned.
Because I'm not going anywhere, unless something's on fire. But yeah, it's just I really enjoy interacting and just making new friends. So I'm looking forward to life getting back to whatever not the new normal, the next normal is going to be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to everyone for tuning in on behalf of Premier Speakers and National Speakers. Thanks for joining us. Also, make sure to go to freevirtualfridays.com or premierspeakers.com. We'll be doing more of these throughout the year. And thank you again for joining us. Thanks, Scott.
Yay, it's fun. Awesome.